The vast chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as the holographic display flickered to life, bathing the assembled dignitaries in an eerie blue glow. What appeared before them defied explanation: sleek vessels of impossible geometries, their obsidian hulls seeming to absorb rather than reflect the light of distant stars. These were ships that, according to all known physics and intelligence reports, simply should not exist. Sitting at the center of the crescent-shaped table, Celestial Emperor Jarix's scaled face contorted into an expression that his species rarely displayed: fear. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his seven-fingered hand trembling slightly as he pointed at the projection. These vessels were not in any Earth reports. They possessed no registration signals. From the Earth delegation section, Ambassador Rhea Cal rose with practiced diplomatic poise, though the slight twitch of her left eyelid betrayed her own surprise at the images. "Your Eminence, I assure you that my government will investigate these anomalies." But both knew her words were empty. The truth hung in the air like a toxic gas. Humanity had secretly developed technology that shattered the carefully maintained balance of galactic power. Meanwhile, 16 light-years away, Captain Celine Voss stood on the bridge of the Earth Fleet flagship, Aurora's Edge, watching the same feed with a mixture of pride and apprehension. The ships, her ships, were about to change everything. "Status report on Obsidian Fleet deployment," she commanded, her voice steady despite the weight of what they were about to unleash. "All units in formation, Captain," replied her tactical officer. "Stealth systems nominal. The Council's observation posts have only detected what we wanted them to see." Celine nodded, her silver-streaked black hair catching the light of the command console. "Then it's time to rewrite the rules of this galaxy." She took a deep breath and opened a secure channel to Earth Command. "Operation Shadowbreak is a go." The age of human submission to alien oversight was officially over. Captain Celine Voss had never intended to become the fulcrum upon which the future of human independence would balance. At 43, she had expected to serve out her remaining years navigating the complex diplomatic waters of Earth's relationship with the Galactic Council, perhaps eventually retiring to teach at the Academy. Her mother had been a diplomat, her father a physicist. Both had instilled in her a deep respect for both words and science as tools for humanity's advancement. But that was before the Centauri incident 3 years ago, when the Council had peacefully resolved a territorial dispute by giving human colony rights to the Thrax Imperium. 2 million human colonists had been forcibly relocated, their generations of work claimed as reparations for supposed treaty violations that Earth had never committed. Celine had lost her younger brother in that peaceful resolution. Now, as she stood on the bridge of the Aurora's Edge, she felt the weight of command press down on her shoulders like the gravity of a neutron star. The ship hummed around her, its sleek interior belying the conventional appearance it presented to the galaxy. The Edge was Earth's most advanced vessel. Officially, unofficially, it served as the command and control center for something far more revolutionary. "Captain, we're receiving an urgent transmission from Ambassador Cal," announced Communications Officer Elias Wright, his dark features illuminated by his console's glow. "Priority Alpha." "On screen," Celine ordered, straightening her midnight blue uniform with an unconscious tug. The main view screen shifted from a starfield to Ambassador Rhea Cal's face. The woman's usual composed expression was fractured with concern. "Captain Voss, the Council has convened an emergency session. Our intelligence reports that Emperor Jarix has ordered his Grand Fleet to full alert status." Celine's jaw tightened. Earlier than expected, they're demanding explanations about unregistered vessels operating in the Kepler expanse. Vessels with technology that violates at least 3 provisions of the Galactic Armament Accords. Rhea's voice lowered. "Celine, they have images. Partial sensor readings. This wasn't supposed to happen yet. Someone leaked, Celine replied, her mind already calculating potential sources and countermeasures. Or they have better detection systems than intelligence believed. The Council has given Earth 24 standard hours to present explanations before they vote on sanctions. Ria's eyes met Celine's through the screen. I need to know what I'm walking into. Celine felt the eyes of her bridge crew upon her. This moment had always been inevitable, the moment when Earth would have to decide whether to retreat or advance. For too long, humanity had been treated as the newcomers, the lesser species, granted only the scraps of resources and territories that the established powers deemed worthless. Tell them. Celine paused, choosing her words with care. Tell them that Earth is conducting routine training exercises with newly commissioned vessels. Nothing more. They won't believe that. They don't need to believe it. They just need a diplomatic fiction to avoid immediate escalation. Ria's expression hardened. And the real explanation is classified beyond your clearance. Ambassador, I'm sorry. The diplomatic mask slipped for just a moment as Ria's frustration broke through. Damn it, Celine! I can't navigate these waters blindfolded. Not with Jarex looking for any excuse to put us in our place. 24 hours, Celine replied calmly. By then, either we'll be having a very different conversation, or none at all. She gestured to Wright, who terminated the connection. The bridge fell silent. Set course for the Kepler Expanse border, Celine ordered after a moment. And signal the Obsidian fleet. Tell Chief Engineer Malik to prepare for full operational demonstration. Captain, her first officer, Commander Talia Reyes, stepped closer, lowering her voice. Are we really doing this? Command hasn't given official authorization for Phase 2. Celine met her gaze unflinchingly. Sometimes, Talia, waiting for authorization means missing the only window you'll get. I'd rather ask forgiveness than permission when humanity's future is at stake. As the Aurora's edge altered course, accelerating toward what could become either the most significant diplomatic crisis or the greatest advancement in human history, Celine opened her personal terminal and began recording what might be her final captain's log. The Council has maintained peace through stagnation, she dictated. They've created a system where established powers remain unchallenged, while emerging civilizations like ours are kept technologically dependent and territorially constrained. Today, we show them that humanity will no longer accept those terms. The Kepler Expanse stretched before the Aurora's edge, like a vast cosmic ocean, its borders defined more by political agreement than any physical demarcation. This region of space, rich with asteroid fields and pre-stellar materials, had been designated as a neutral zone, a buffer between Earth's sphere of influence and the territories of the Thrax Imperium. In reality, it had become a forgotten frontier, patrolled occasionally by automated Council drones that reported to no single species. It was the perfect testing ground for what humanity had developed in secret. On the observation deck, Celine met with Chief Engineer Malik Arden, the brilliant mind behind Project Obsidian. At 38, Malik looked older than his years, his dark skin lined with the stress of pushing physics beyond its known boundaries, his beard streaked with premature gray. They're beautiful, aren't they? He said quietly, gazing out at the stars. Though the Obsidian ships were currently invisible to both the naked eye and conventional sensors, Malik spoke as if he could see them. Perhaps, in his mind's eye, he could. They are, Celine agreed. But are they ready? Malik's fingers tapped a complex rhythm against the railing, a nervous habit he'd developed during the project's most stressful phases. The gravitic displacement drives function at 94% efficiency. The dark matter shielding maintains cohesion, even under simulated weapons fire. The only real question is the phase transition capability. Which is the entire point, Celine reminded him. Yes. Malik hesitated. Captain, when I joined this project, I believed we were developing a revolutionary propulsion system, a way to level the playing field with species that had centuries of head start on us. I didn't fully understand we were building— "What?" Celine prompted when he trailed off. "Weapons that could destabilize the entire power structure of the known galaxy." Celine turned to face him fully. "Is that what bothers you, Malik? That we might disrupt the status quo? The same status quo that has kept humanity contained to a handful of systems, while other species control hundreds? What bothers me is that I don't know if we're ready for the responsibility that comes with this technology." Malik's voice was quiet, but intense. "The ability to shift matter partially out of phase with normal space-time. It's not just about making ships that can't be detected or targeted. It's about potentially weaponizing the fabric of reality itself." "Every technological advancement can be weaponized," Celine countered. "Fire, the wheel, nuclear fission. The question isn't whether we should have this power, but whether we can afford to let others monopolize it." Before Malik could respond, Celine's communicator chimed. "Captain to the bridge. Priority alert." The moment they stepped onto the bridge, Celine sensed the tension. The main view screen displayed a sector map with multiple red indicators converging on their position. 6 vessels approaching from the Thrax border," Commander Reyes reported. "Configuration matches Council peacekeeping forces, but they're running with Thrax registry codes." Celine's eyes narrowed. "Jarix didn't waste any time. He's using his Council position to deploy Thrax forces under the guise of peacekeeping. They're broadcasting on all frequencies," Communications Officer Wright added, "demanding that we power down and prepare for inspection under Article 7 of the Armament Accords." "How convenient," Celine murmured. "And if they find evidence of treaty violations, the Thrax get to claim more human territory as compensation." She straightened her shoulders. "Tactical. What's their weapon status?" "Defense screens active but weapon systems in standby," reported Lieutenant Kim from the tactical station. "They're making a show of peace while positioning for potential engagement." Celine exchanged a glance with Malik, whose expression had shifted from philosophical concern to focused determination. Whatever his misgivings about the technology he'd created, the engineer clearly understood the immediate threat. "Maintain our course," Celine ordered. "Open a channel." When the connection was established, the screen filled with the imposing visage of a Thrax commander, his chitinous facial plates arranged in the formal pattern of diplomatic authority. "Earth vessel," he began without preamble. "You are operating in restricted space and are suspected of harboring prohibited technologies. By authority of the Galactic Council, you will power down your drives and prepare for boarding." Celine stepped forward, her posture conveying neither submission nor aggression. "This is Captain Celine Voss of the Earth vessel, Aurora's Edge. We are conducting authorized navigation exercises in neutral territory. The Kepler Expanse is not restricted space under any treaty Earth has signed. Our sensors detect anomalous energy signatures consistent with prohibited gravitic manipulation," the Thrax commander countered. "The Council has authorized immediate inspection. I was unaware that the full Council could convene, deliberate, and vote within the span of a few hours." Celine replied coolly. "Perhaps you could transmit the authorization, including the voting record?" The Thrax's mandibles clicked in what those familiar with the species recognized as irritation. The emergency powers provision allows for executive action in cases of potential security threats. Invoked by Emperor Jarix, I presume. How convenient that the same individual who stands to gain from finding violations is also the one authorizing the search. Your diplomatic objections are noted and irrelevant. The Thrax's compound eyes gleamed. You have 5 minutes to comply, or we will take appropriate enforcement action. When the transmission ended, Commander Reyes moved to Celine's side. They're positioning to cut off our retreat vectors. This isn't just an inspection. It's an ambush. Of course it is, Celine replied. Jarix has been looking for an excuse to put humanity back in its place since we started expanding our presence in the Arcturus sector. She turned to Malik. It seems your technological ethical dilemma has become rather academic. Chief Engineer, we either use what we've developed, or we surrender it, along with any hope of Earth determining its own future. Malik nodded grimly. The Obsidian fleet is ready on your command. Celine took her captain's chair, feeling the weight of the moment. Every instinct trained into her by years of Earth fleet service told her to avoid confrontation, to find the diplomatic solution. But sometimes, diplomacy required leverage that could only be created through demonstration of power. Tactical. What would be the minimum display necessary to convince our Thrax friends to reconsider their position? Lieutenant Kim studied her console for a moment. A single Obsidian vessel decloaking within their formation would likely create significant psychological impact without requiring actual weapons deployment. Make it so, Celine ordered. Signal Obsidian 3 to execute Pattern Revelation Alpha. Throughout the bridge, officers held their breath as the countdown proceeded. On the tactical display, a new signature suddenly appeared, directly in the center of the Thrax formation. Where empty space had existed moments before, a ship now materialized, a vessel of impossible curves and angles, its surface seeming to both absorb and distort light around it. They're scattering, Kim reported, unable to keep a note of satisfaction from her voice. Breaking formation and powering up weapons. Open channel to all Thrax vessels, Celine commanded. When the connection was established, she spoke with calm authority. This is Captain Voss. As you can see, we have capabilities beyond what you anticipated. We have revealed only one vessel as a courtesy. There are others. She paused, letting the implication sink in. I suggest we both report to our respective authorities and allow diplomacy to proceed without unnecessary escalation. Do you concur? The response came not as words, but as actions. The Thrax vessels regrouped at a safer distance, maintaining position but no longer advancing. They're requesting permission to dispatch a courier vessel to the nearest Council relay station, Wright reported. Permission granted, Celine replied. And signal Earth Command. Tell them Phase 2 of Project Obsidian has officially begun, ahead of schedule. As the Thrax courier departed, Commander Reyes approached Celine's chair. They'll be back with reinforcements. I'm counting on it, Celine answered. But next time, they'll come prepared for serious negotiation rather than intimidation. She turned to Malik. Your ships performed admirably, Chief Engineer. Malik's expression remained troubled despite the technical success. This was just the opening move, Captain. The real test will be whether we can translate this technological advantage into diplomatic progress without triggering a galactic war. That, Celine agreed, is the question that will determine everything. The emergency session of the Galactic Council stretched into its 6th hour as delegates from 17 major civilizations and 39 associate members argued, threatened, and maneuvered in response to what many were now calling the Earth Crisis. The Grand Chamber, with its soaring crystal dome offering a view of Valyria Prime's perpetual auroras, hummed with tension. Ambassador Rhea Cal sat at the Earth delegation's table, maintaining a facade of diplomatic composure, while internally calculating how quickly the situation was deteriorating. Beside her, her aides frantically processed incoming information, comparing council members' public statements with their private communications, the doublespeak of galactic diplomacy. Across the chamber, Emperor Jarix occupied the ornate chair of precedence, a position that rotated among the founding species, but which the cunning Thrax leader had managed to secure for an unprecedented 3rd consecutive term. His chitinous face might have been unreadable to humans unfamiliar with his kind, but Rhea had spent decades in diplomatic service. She recognized the subtle patterns of his facial plates. He was enjoying this crisis, seeing in it an opportunity to finally check Earth's growing influence. The evidence is incontrovertible, Jarix was saying, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into the common diplomatic language. Earth has violated no fewer than 7 provisions of the armament accords. Their vessels employ phase shift technology explicitly prohibited under the Sirius Convention. A convention, Rhea interjected smoothly, that Earth was never invited to sign, as we were deemed too developmentally immature at the time of its drafting. A ripple of uncomfortable murmurs passed through the chamber. It was impolitic to directly reference the Council's history of excluding younger species from key decisions, a truth acknowledged but rarely spoken aloud. The principles apply regardless of signature, Jarix countered, mandibles clicking in irritation. Otherwise, any emergent civilization could claim exemption from established galactic norms, precisely as the founding species did when they established those norms, Rhea replied, her voice never rising, but carrying throughout the chamber nonetheless. Before there was a council, before there were accords, each of your civilizations developed technologies according to their needs and interests. The Arcturian delegate, a being of swirling gases contained within an environmental suit, pulsed with the blue-green colors that indicated agreement. Ambassador Cal makes a valid point. The restrictions on phase shift technology were implemented after the Quantum Wars, specifically to prevent a recurrence of that conflict. But Earth had no part in those wars, and has apparently learned nothing from our history, added the Proximan representative, her crystalline form refracting light as she gestured dismissively. This is precisely why developmental oversight exists, to prevent younger species from repeating our mistakes. Rhea felt a flash of the anger that constantly simmered beneath her diplomatic veneer. The paternalistic attitude of the established powers had been a constant throughout her career, the assumption that humanity needed guidance, protection, and limits for its own good. What my esteemed colleagues seem to be suggesting, she said carefully, is that Earth should remain permanently subordinate to species that happen to achieve interstellar travel before us, that we should accept constraints on our development that none of you accepted during your own ascendance. We accept those same constraints now, Jarix pointed out. Phase shift technology is prohibited for all Council members, not merely Earth. After you fully developed it, Rhea countered, after you understood its potential and its dangers, after you had already secured your positions of power, the debate might have continued in this circular fashion indefinitely, if not for the interruption that changed everything. A junior Thrax aide rushed to Emperor Jarix's side, chittering urgently in their native language. The Emperor's compound eyes widened slightly, the only visible reaction to whatever news he had received. We will take a brief recess, Jarix announced abruptly. The Council will reconvene in 1 standard hour. As the delegates dispersed, Rhea received her own urgent communication. The message from Captain Voss was characteristically brief. Phase 3 initiated. Prepare for full disclosure protocol. Rhea felt a chill run through her. Phase 3 hadn't been scheduled for implementation for another 6 months, after careful diplomatic groundwork had been laid. Whatever had happened in the Kepler expanse had accelerated the timeline dramatically. She had barely processed this information when her chief aide approached, expression grave. Ambassador, we're receiving reports of a significant confrontation in the Kepler expanse. It appears a Thrax battle group engaged Earth vessels, including, he lowered his voice, the experimental ships. Casualties? Rhea asked sharply. None confirmed yet, but the Thrax are claiming Earth used prohibited weapons technology. Rhea closed her eyes briefly, centering herself. Find out everything you can before the session resumes, and prepare the contingency package. It seems we're going to need it. When the Council reconvened, the atmosphere had changed palpably. Where before, there had been diplomatic posturing and procedural maneuvering. Now, there was genuine alarm. Representatives from neutral powers who had previously remained silent were engaged in urgent consultations. The Proximan delegation had expanded to include military advisors. Emperor Jarix took the chair of precedence with cold purpose in his bearing. This council session will now address an act of military aggression by Earth forces against a lawful peacekeeping mission. Approximately 2 standard hours ago, Earth vessels utilizing prohibited technology attacked a Thrax contingent operating under Council authority. Rhea stood immediately. That is a gross mischaracterization of events. Emperor, we have confirmation that Thrax vessels initiated hostile action against Earth ships conducting lawful operations in neutral space. Your ships employed phase shift technology to appear within our formation. A provocative act of aggression, Jarix countered. After your vessels threatened boarding and seizure without proper council authorization, Rhea replied. The Thrax battle group was operating under false pretenses. The chamber erupted in overlapping objections and points of order. For several minutes, the council's automated moderation systems struggled to restore procedural order. It was the Arcturian delegate who finally cut through the chaos. Perhaps, the gas being suggested, its translator rendering its harmonic vibrations into words. We should examine the actual sensor records rather than relying on contradictory accounts. An excellent suggestion, Rhea agreed quickly. Earth is prepared to submit complete records from the Aurora's Edge for council review. As is the Thrax Imperium, Jarix added, mandibles clicking in what those familiar with his species recognized as smug confidence. The central holographic display activated, showing the initial encounter from the Thrax perspective, Earth's Aurora's Edge, apparently alone in space. Then, suddenly surrounded by vessels that materialized from nowhere, clearly employing some form of advanced cloaking technology. The recording continued, showing the Thrax vessels assuming defensive positions. As you can see, Jarix commented, Earth ambushed a peacekeeping force with ships employing prohibited technology. Interesting editing, Rhea observed dryly. Perhaps the complete record would be more informative. When Earth's recording began playing, the difference was immediately apparent. It showed the initial approach of the Thrax vessels, their demand for inspection, and the clear positioning for interception rather than peaceful contact. Most significantly, it showed only a single Earth vessel decloaking, not as part of an ambush, but as a demonstration after threats were made. The council chamber fell silent as the recordings concluded. It was the Proximan representative who spoke first, her crystalline form pulsing with the pale blue of uncertainty. These records appear to show significantly different versions of the same event. One is clearly manipulated, Jarix insisted. But there was a new hesitancy in his translator's rendering of his speech. Or perhaps both contain selective perspectives, offered the Deneb representative, their multifaceted sensory array scanning both recordings. What remains undisputed is that Earth possesses technology that this council had believed to be contained. Rhea recognized the pivotal moment when it arrived. The debate had shifted from Earth's culpability to the reality of Earth's technological achievement. It was time to implement the strategy that Captain Voss had accelerated. Honored representatives, she began, her voice clear and resolute. Earth has indeed developed technology that some members of this council would prefer remained exclusive to established powers. We have done so not in violation of our treaty obligations, but in response to the clear pattern of technological suppression that has characterized Earth's relationship with the Council. She activated her personal data terminal, sending a packet of information to the Council's central system. I am now providing documentation of 27 separate instances in which Earth's legitimate technological development was obstructed through Council mechanisms controlled by the founding species. The documentation appeared on delegates' screens, trade restrictions that mysteriously appeared whenever Earth scientists made breakthroughs in certain fields, regulatory barriers that applied only to human innovations, punitive tariffs on exports that competed with established powers' monopolies. Earth did not choose secrecy as our first option, Rhea continued. Secrecy became necessary when transparency was weaponized against us. The council chamber buzzed with urgent consultations as delegates reviewed the evidence. Rhea noted with satisfaction that several of the neutral powers, those who had themselves experienced similar treatment, were showing signs of support. Emperor Xerix, however, was not so easily outmaneuvered. These diplomatic grievances, legitimate or otherwise, do not justify the development of potentially catastrophic technologies. The phase shift capability demonstrated by Earth vessels could, if weaponized, destabilize the very fabric of spacetime. A theoretical danger, Rhea countered. That hasn't materialized in the centuries since the founding species developed the same technology. We responsibly contained its use. After using it to secure your positions of dominance, Rhea replied calmly. Earth asks only for the same opportunity, to develop our potential without artificial constraints imposed by those who fear competition. The debate might have continued indefinitely along philosophical lines, if not for the unexpected interruption that followed. The Council's emergency alert system activated, filling the chamber with a pulsing amber light that signaled an imminent security situation. We are receiving a direct transmission from the Kepler expanse, announced the Council's automated systems. Multiple signatures detected, including recognized Earth vessels and unknown configurations. Emperor Xerix rose from the chair of precedence, compound eyes fixed on the central display. This is an unauthorized communication. Security protocols require... But his objection was cut short as the holographic display activated, showing not the expected diplomatic feed, but a tactical view of space. In the center of the display stood Captain Celine Voss on the bridge of the Aurora's edge, her expression resolute. Greetings to the assembled Galactic Council, she began without preamble. I am Captain Celine Voss of Earth Fleet. I am transmitting from the Kepler expanse, where Earth forces have been engaged by a combined battle group consisting of Thrax, Proximan, and Council security vessels. The display split to show the space around the Aurora's edge, where multiple hostile ships had formed an attack formation. But surrounding them, previously invisible to sensors, a dozen Earth vessels shimmered into existence, the full Obsidian fleet revealing itself simultaneously. As you can see, Celine continued, Earth possesses capabilities beyond what has been acknowledged in Council proceedings. We have maintained these capabilities in reserve, not as a threat, but as an insurance policy against precisely the kind of coordinated suppression we are currently experiencing. The Council chamber erupted in chaos as delegates demanded explanations, issued threats, or called for immediate military response. Emperor Xerix's mandibles clicked rapidly in the Thrax expression of extreme agitation. This is an outrage, he declared, the translator struggling to keep pace with his agitated speech patterns. Earth threatens this council with prohibited weapons while claiming to be the victim. Ambassador Rhea stood calmly amidst the tumult. Earth threatens no one, she stated clearly. Captain Voss is demonstrating the reality that this council must now address. Humanity has achieved technological parity with the founding species. The question is whether this body will respond with further attempts at suppression, or with acceptance of a new balance of power. On the display, Celine continued her address. The Obsidian fleet represents not just a technological achievement, but a philosophical one. Earth rejects the notion that any civilization has the right to constrain another's development. We reject the paternalistic oversight that has limited human potential for generations. The tactical display shifted to show one of the Obsidian ships in detail, its impossible geometries and light-absorbing hull, confounding conventional analysis. These vessels employ principles that the Council has long claimed were too dangerous for younger species to control. Yet we have mastered them without the catastrophic consequences that were predicted. A new voice entered the conversation. Malik Arden stepped into view beside Captain Voss. The phase transition drive does not destabilize spacetime as Council science has claimed, the engineer explained. It creates a controlled harmonic resonance that allows matter to exist partially outside conventional dimensions. We've developed safety protocols that eliminate the risks associated with early implementations of this technology. In the council chamber, the Arcturian delegate pulsed with the color patterns of intense, intellectual interest. This would suggest that the council's scientific consensus on phase shift technology has been incomplete or deliberately misleading, added the representative from Tau Ceti, whose own civilization had long chafed under similar restrictions. Emperor Jarix's compound eyes narrowed as he recognized the shifting dynamics. This technological display changes nothing about Earth's treaty obligations, he insisted. The development of these ships represents a clear violation of multiple provisions of the armament accords. Provisions that Earth was never permitted to help formulate. Rhea reminded the assembly. Restrictions imposed upon us, rather than agreed to by us. On the display, Captain Voss addressed this point directly. Earth does not seek conflict. We seek recognition of our right to develop without artificial constraints, recognition of our status as equals, rather than wards of the Council. The tactical display shifted again, showing the Obsidian fleet rearranging into a defensive formation as the hostile vessels maintained their aggressive posture. We are currently faced with ships that have locked weapons on Earth vessels in neutral space. We have not returned targeting solutions despite having the capability to do so. Our restraint demonstrates our commitment to peaceful resolution, if such resolution is possible. Ambassador Rhea seized the moment. The Council faces a choice. It can acknowledge the new reality and work with Earth to integrate these technological developments into a stable framework. Or it can attempt to suppress what cannot be suppressed, and risk the very conflict that the Council was formed to prevent. The chamber fell into an uneasy silence as the assembled delegates considered the implications. It was the Deneb representative who finally broke the impasse, their sensory array pulsing thoughtfully. Perhaps, they suggested, we should begin by ordering all military vessels in the Kepler expanse to stand down. Whatever diplomatic or regulatory decisions this body makes should not be made under the shadow of imminent conflict. The proposal gained immediate support from the neutral powers, who had the most to lose in any large-scale confrontation between major civilizations. Even some of the founding species representatives nodded in agreement, recognizing the dangerous precipice on which they stood. Emperor Jarix, however, seemed reluctant to relinquish the leverage that the deployed forces represented. The vessels were dispatched in accordance with Council security protocols, he insisted. Their presence ensures compliance with— Their presence ensures nothing but escalation, interrupted the Arcturian delegate, its gaseous form pulsing with uncharacteristic intensity. I formally move that the Council issue an immediate stand-down order to all forces in the Kepler expanse, pending full diplomatic review of the situation. The motion passed, despite Jarix's objection, with even the Proximan delegation abstaining, rather than voting against it. The order was transmitted immediately, though whether it would be obeyed remained to be seen. On the tactical display, Captain Voss acknowledged receipt of the order. The Aurora's Edge and its accompanying vessels will maintain current positions, but deactivate targeting systems as a show of good faith. We await confirmation that other forces will do the same. For several tense minutes, the Council chamber and the bridge of the Aurora's Edge waited to see whether the confrontation would de-escalate or erupt into the first interstellar conflict in over a century. Finally, the hostile vessels began powering down their weapons, though they maintained their positions. Phase 1 de-escalation confirmed, Celine reported, visible relief in her expression. We're standing by for further instructions. Ambassador Rhea seized the opportunity created by this fragile detente. Honored representatives, Earth proposes the formation of a special committee to examine the technological, legal, and security implications of recent developments. We suggest equal representation from founding species, associate members, and Earth. The proposal was deliberatively provocative, placing Earth on equal footing with the combined founding species, rather than as one voice among many associate members. It was a declaration of Earth's new self-perception as a major power rather than a junior partner. Surprisingly, it was the Proximan representative who offered qualified support. "While the specific structure requires discussion," she said, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns of cautious consideration. "The principle of direct engagement with Earth on these matters seems prudent." What followed was 6 hours of intense negotiation, during which Captain Voss maintained the Obsidian Fleet's position in the Kepler expanse as a tangible reminder of the new reality. Ambassador Rhea navigated the complex diplomatic waters with the skill born of decades of experience, making concessions on procedural matters while holding firm on substantive ones. By the time the council session adjourned, a framework agreement had been reached. A technological review committee would be formed with balanced representation. All military forces would withdraw from the Kepler expanse, which would be designated a diplomatic neutral zone. And most significantly, the blanket prohibition on phase shift technology would be replaced with a regulatory regime that allowed for its controlled development by any civilization that could demonstrate appropriate safety protocols. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, Emperor Jarix approached Ambassador Rhea, his translator inactive, a sign that this conversation was to remain unofficial. "You have overplayed your hand, Ambassador," he said in the halting common language that most species could manage without translation. "Earth has revealed its capabilities before it was truly ready to defend them." "Perhaps," Rhea acknowledged, "or perhaps we've simply accelerated an inevitable confrontation to occur on terms more favorable to us than you would have preferred." The Emperor's compound eyes studied her with alien calculation. "This council has maintained peace for 8 centuries. "A peace built on stagnation and control," Rhea replied. "Perhaps it's time for a peace built on equality and shared advancement." "Your species is young," Jarix observed, mandibles clicking softly. "Young species often mistake novelty for progress. And old species often mistake tradition for wisdom," Rhea countered. "Either way, the galaxy has changed today. Emperor, we can adapt together, or struggle against each other, but the old order is gone." As the Thrax leader turned away without further comment, Rhea allowed herself a small smile. The real work, the difficult, detailed work of reshaping humanity's place in the galactic community, was just beginning. But for the first time since Earth had joined the Council, humans would be negotiating from a position of strength rather than dependence. In the officers' lounge of the Aurora's Edge, Captain Celine Voss gazed out at the stars of the Kepler expanse. The immediate crisis had passed, but the ship remained on alert status, the crew rotating through shortened shifts to maintain optimal readiness. The Obsidian Fleet had returned to phase-shifted invisibility, present but unseen, much like humanity's newfound influence in galactic affairs. The door slid open to admit Chief Engineer Malik Arden, who looked as exhausted as Celine felt. The past 72 hours had demanded everything from both of them, from the technical demands of managing experimental technology under combat conditions to the diplomatic performance they had delivered to the Council. "The latest diagnostics are complete," Malik reported, accepting the cup of synthetic coffee that Celine offered. "All Obsidian units are maintaining phase stability within acceptable parameters." "And the drive modifications you were concerned about?" Malik's expression relaxed slightly. "The harmonic fluctuations have stabilized. It seems your decision to reveal the fleet actually helped. Operating in open mode, rather than continuous stealth, has reduced the strain on the phase transition matrices." Celine nodded, taking a sip of her own coffee and grimacing at the taste. 6 months in deep space had depleted their supply of the real thing, and the synthesized version never quite captured the essence of the original. It was a small complaint against the backdrop of recent events. But human comfort mattered, especially now. "I received a priority communication from Ambassador Cal," she said after a moment. "The framework agreement has been formalized. Earth has been granted 3 seats on the Technological Review Committee, with you named as the lead scientific representative." Malik's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Me? I'm an engineer, not a diplomat." "Which is precisely why you're the right choice," Celine replied. "This isn't about politics anymore. It's about establishing the scientific legitimacy of what we've developed. The Council's own researchers will be scrutinizing every aspect of the phase transition drive. They need to hear from the person who actually created it, not some political appointee." "And you?" Malik asked. "What's your role in this brave new galactic order?" Celine's gaze returned to the stars. "I've been ordered to maintain the Aurora's Edge and the Obsidian Fleet in a state of readiness. Officially, we're conducting extended operational testing in the Kepler expanse. Unofficially, we're the reminder of what happens if negotiations break down." Malik finished for her. "Precisely." Celine's expression hardened slightly. "Emperor Jarix lost significant political capital in this confrontation, but he hasn't survived 3 terms as council chair by accepting defeat gracefully. Our intelligence suggests he's already forming alliances with other conservative powers to resist the changes the framework agreement will bring." Malik set down his cup, suddenly looking troubled. "Captain, there's something I need to tell you. Something about the phase transition technology that I haven't fully disclosed to anyone outside the core engineering team." Celine's attention sharpened immediately. "Go on." "The principles we've employed in the drive system, they have applications beyond propulsion and stealth." Malik's voice lowered, though they were alone in the lounge. "In the early stages of development, we discovered that the same phase-shifting effect could be applied to manipulate matter at a fundamental level. Theoretically, it could be used to restructure atoms, to convert energy to matter, and back again with almost perfect efficiency." "You're talking about a technology that could eliminate resource scarcity." Celine realized the implications unfolding in her mind. "Or create weapons of unimaginable power," Malik added grimly. "The difference is merely one of application, not principle." Celine was silent for a long moment, processing this revelation. This is why the founding species were so determined to maintain their monopoly on phase shift technology. It's not just about military advantage. It's about economic control. A civilization with unrestricted access to this technology would never again be dependent on others for resources, Malik confirmed. "No wonder they classified it as too dangerous for developing species." "Does Earth Command know?" Malik shook his head. "The theoretical applications were buried in technical appendices that most of the Oversight Committee wouldn't understand. I've been wrestling with when and how to reveal the full implications." Celine studied the engineer thoughtfully. For all his brilliance, Malik had always been more concerned with the pursuit of knowledge than its political implications. That he had deliberately obscured this aspect of his work suggested he understood the enormity of what he had discovered better than he pretended. "Why tell me now?" she asked finally. "Because the next phase of negotiations will determine who controls this technology and how it's implemented," Malik replied. "And because I trust your judgment about whether humanity is ready for what this really means." Before Celine could respond, her communicator chimed with an urgent alert. "Captain to the bridge. Priority signal from Earth Command." When they arrived on the bridge, the main view screen displayed the stern face of Admiral Helena Chen, commander of Earth Fleet and Celine's direct superior. The Admiral's expression gave away nothing of her thoughts about recent events. "Captain Voss," she began, without preamble, "your actions in the Kepler expanse have created a complicated situation for Earth diplomacy." "Yes, Admiral," Celine acknowledged, standing at formal attention. "The accelerated timeline became necessary when, save the explanations for your official report. The Admiral interrupted. I'm contacting you regarding new developments. Our long-range sensors have detected significant fleet movements in Thrax space. Emperor Jarix appears to be consolidating his forces despite the stand-down agreement. Celine exchanged a glance with Malik. Do we believe they're preparing for offensive operations? Intelligence is divided on that question. Admiral Chen replied. What is clear is that the revelation of the Obsidian Fleet has triggered precisely the arms race that the Council's restrictions were ostensibly designed to prevent. The Proximan Conclave has withdrawn their ambassador and placed their defense grid on heightened alert. 3 independent systems have formally requested Earth protection. Protection, Celine repeated, surprised. Against what? Against whatever comes next, the Admiral said grimly. You've altered the balance of power, Captain. Now everyone is recalculating their position in the new order, including powers that previously accepted Thrax or Proximan dominance as inevitable. The implications were both heartening and sobering. Earth had hoped to secure its own independence and equal standing. It hadn't anticipated becoming the center of a realignment of galactic politics. Your new orders, Admiral Chen continued, are to proceed to the Tau Ceti system. The provisional government there has requested a formal defense arrangement with Earth, including technology sharing. You will represent Earth's interests in these negotiations. Tau Ceti has been under Proximan influence for decades, Celine observed. This will be seen as a direct challenge to their sphere of control. That's why we're sending the Aurora's Edge and 3 of the Obsidian vessels, the Admiral confirmed. This is both a diplomatic mission and a show of force. The galaxy needs to understand that Earth is now a power capable of projecting influence beyond its immediate neighbors. After the transmission ended, Celine remained on the bridge, contemplating the rapid evolution of events. What had begun as a project to secure humanity's independence had become something far more complex. The potential restructuring of galactic politics with Earth at its center. I didn't anticipate this, she admitted to Malik, who had remained silently at her side. I thought we would force the Council to accept our technological parity and then negotiate more equitable terms. I never imagined other systems would look to Earth as a counterbalance to the established powers. People who have lived under control will naturally look to anyone who challenges the controllers, Malik replied. The question is whether we're ready for that responsibility. Celine turned to her bridge crew, who awaited her orders with the quiet professionalism that had seen them through the crisis in the Kepler expanse. Each of them had signed on to protect Earth and its colonies, not to become the vanguard of a new galactic order. Yet here they were, at the pivot point of history. Set course for Tau Ceti, she ordered finally, and signal the Obsidian vessels designated in Admiral Chen's orders to accompany us. We depart in 6 hours. As the crew moved to execute her commands, Celine returned to the viewport, gazing out at the stars that suddenly seemed filled with new possibilities and new dangers. The ships that shouldn't exist, she murmured, remembering the Council's reaction to the first sighting of the Obsidian Fleet. They've changed everything, haven't they? Beside her, Malik nodded solemnly. Technology always does, Captain. The question is whether we change with it, or let it change us in ways we never intended. The Aurora's Edge began its preparations for departure, its systems humming with renewed purpose. In her quarters, later that evening, Celine recorded what would become a historic captain's log. We set course for Tau Ceti with a mission that extends beyond diplomatic representation. Earth stands at a crossroads between being merely one power among many and becoming the catalyst for a new galactic order. The technology we've developed offers freedom from resource constraints, freedom from military intimidation, freedom from the artificial limits imposed by those who feared our potential. But with that freedom comes profound responsibility. She paused, considering her next words carefully. The Obsidian Fleet was created to ensure humanity's independence. Now, it may become the foundation of a coalition of civilizations seeking their own independence. This was not our intention. But history rarely unfolds according to anyone's plans. The question before us now is not whether Earth will become a major power. That decision has been made by our actions in the Kepler expanse. The question is what kind of power we will become. As the Aurora's Edge departed for Tau Ceti, accompanied by 3 ships that defied conventional physics, the Galactic Order trembled on the edge of transformation. The ancient powers that had maintained their dominance through technological monopoly now faced a future where such advantage could no longer be guaranteed. The younger civilizations that had accepted their subordinate status now saw in Earth's example the possibility of a different path. And Captain Celine Voss, standing on the bridge of the ship that had carried humanity's defiance to the stars, felt both the weight of that responsibility and the exhilaration of possibility. Whatever came next, the galaxy would never be the same. The ships that shouldn't exist had ensured that much.